Today on Com Talk, we're going to be taking a look at a devotion found in the Fantastic 42, a fellowship facing doom with hope.
Glix, what is going on?
We are receiving a signal from a new area on the planet Geek.
All right, let's see what the planet has for us today.
Opening prawns in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 116 of Com Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, a show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting you know that you are loved. I'm Dallas. I'm so glad you hit the play button today. On this podcast, we listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you have found it today. This past week on our show, we had a special Patreon episode where one of our patrons had actually sponsored the episode. It's one of the tier levels you can get if you become one of our patrons, which you can do that if you go to patreon.com/geekdevotions or just go to geekdevotions.com and click on our support page. But he sponsored an episode. He wanted us to try doing a devotion based off of the day the earth stood still. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that I had already in the back of my mind a devotion based off of it because I had read it in a book by our good friends Eric and Nathan, and a variety of other individuals who joined this time who do the Fantastic 42 series. If you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, Nathan and Eric have been putting out books every so often. There are 42 devotionals, and Eric is from Nerd Chapel, nerdchapel.com, and they're really great devotions based in geek nerd culture, and each one's a little bit different. In this most recent version, they actually invited other people to come and join them. And honestly, guys, I recognize pretty much most of the names on here. We have a guy named Scott Bales, Becky Smith, Chris Cook, and a variety of other people who are just great individuals who genuinely love the Lord, but also love geek and nerd culture. And so it's a great book, and we actually have an interview coming out with them hopefully soon. Branson is working out some scheduling stuff to do a devotion or do an interview with him, and I'm going to be doing a full-fledged review on the book also down the road. But today I wanted to look at something because, like I said, we have the devotion that came out Friday on our YouTube channel where we talk about the day the earth stood still. But Eric from Nerd Chapel, he had one, and it's actually the very first devotion you find in the Fantastic 42. So today, I'm going to take a look at it. We're going to read it together, and I say together, you guys are going to listen to me. And because it's really good. It's a great devotion. I think it'll encourage you guys and help you to think a little bit. And again, I want to encourage you, if you're interested in getting a copy of the Fantastic 42, visit nerdchapel.com. It has all the information you need. So with that being said, let's jump into this devotion. Klaatu's Mission by Eric Anderson. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Galatians 5:25. In 1951, the sci-fi classic The Day the Earth Stood Still begins with a flying saucer traveling around the planet before landing in Washington, D.C., just a short walk from the White House. After it has sat there for a time, the army has surrounded it. Klaatu, played by Macarena, walks out of the ship on a suddenly formed ramp and tries to introduce himself, peacefully. Bam! An item in his hand is dropped after a spooked infantryman fires his pistol. A robot named Gort responds by destroying the soldiers' weapons with some sort of laser, but Klaatu stops him. Our new alien friend is taken to Walter Reed Medical Center, where he makes a quick recovery from his injuries due to a salve that he brought from his journey. While there, he meets his secretary for the president, Mr. Harley, who comes to have a discussion. Klaatu asks for a meeting with leaders from every nation on the planet. A small grievance between nations are meaningless to him, and he doesn't understand why they won't come together. His message is not just for the USA, not just for the United Nations, but for everyone. Mr. Harley does approach the president with the request, but then it comes back with the letters from many nations, including Britain and the USSR, confirming many disagreements about such a meeting. When accused of being impatient, Klaatu says, "I'm impatient with stupidity." He's astonished that the nations will not work together for this. It is then he makes a request to go out, talk to people, and explore the world for himself. He desires to meet ordinary people. Harley puts a hard no in place and even has the door locked, which seems to amuse Klaatu. He grins at the silliness of a locked door. He escapes off screen, but you get the idea that locked doors do not a prison make for this man from the stars. He does go out, and he finds a room to rent, saying his name is Carpenter. Over the next act of the film, he befriends those in the house, especially a young boy named Bobby Benson, played by Billy Gray, and his mom, Helen Benson, played by Patricia Neal. He and Bobby go out and see many sights. They stop by the gravesite of Bobby's father in Arlington Cemetery and go to see the spaceship. Klaatu even sells the kid a couple of diamonds for $2. Klaatu takes time to teach the kid about rocket science and arithmetic while trying not to expose himself. 2,000 years ago, a man came who was not of this world. John 1:10. He arrives by birth to a virgin on a night when angels, also being not of this world, announce it to shepherds. His name is Jesus, and he wanted to walk among us, eat with us, and teach us many things. His message was also not just for the select few, but for all who would listen. Some did not want his message to go out into the world. They opposed him with many questions, and he did get impatient with stupidity. He drew many disciples to himself and taught them numerous lessons. Sometimes he would comment, "O you of little faith," when they seemed confused and scared. In the Hebrew and Christian traditions, there are varying names of God that all focus on different aspects of him. One of those is Emmanuel, which means God with us. Klaatu eventually meets a scientist named Bernhard and helps him solve an equation related to space travel. As they decide to set up a meeting for scientists and thinkers to come hear what he would say, the professor asks for a sign, something huge that would not hurt anyone. The next day at noon, everything stops. The earth stood still, so to speak. Electricity was neutralized all over the world. Cars, trains, elevators, even malt machines at restaurants were all affected. This lasts for exactly half an hour, prompting major fear and discussion. In a meeting at the Pentagon, it is explained that planes are still flying and hospital equipment is not affected by this phenomenon. Before the meeting, the army finds Klaatu and manages to shoot him. Helen, who has been helping him get around the city, takes a message to the robot Gort. Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. The robot recovers the body and puts him in a machine in the spacecraft that revives him. Shocked by this, Helen says, "You mean he has the power of life and death?" "No, that power is reserved for the Almighty Spirit," replies Klaatu. Think about that. The power of life and death is reserved for God. I don't have it. You don't have it. But Jesus does. He is 100% man and 100% God. While on earth, he often healed the sick, gave sight to the blind, and even raised the dead. He even stopped storms with his voice. Klaatu needs equipment for what he does. But even now, Jesus has the power. In his pivotal moment, he chose to allow himself to go through a painful death on a cross to bring redemption, far more painful than the bullets that Klaatu felt. But then came a moment far more powerful than the earth standing still. Jesus resurrected from the dead. He beat death itself and now sits at the right hand of God the Father. After being revived, Klaatu finally gives his message to the scientists and thinkers. He has come because many other planets have chosen to cooperate with a set of rules against aggression, and Earth is invited into the alliance. This won't affect any of the multinational drama on Earth, but would affect how humanity interacts galactically. Gort is one of many robots that act as a policeman traveling the universe, keeping aggression in check. Here's some of what Klaatu says. "This does not mean giving up any freedoms, except the freedom to act irresponsible. The result is we live in peace without arms or armies, secure in the knowledge we are free from aggression and war, free to pursue more profitable enterprises. We do not pretend to be perfect, but we have a system and it works. Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration." Jesus gave us a lot of teachings to think about. He challenged religious leaders who wanted to add unnecessary rules. He called us deeper in the focus and spirit of the law given in the Old Testament, and he changed our understanding of faith. In Matthew 5 through 7 and Luke 6, we find the Sermon on the Mount, which gives us directives on personal ethics, ways we can be more profitable for those around us and for ourselves. Romans 6:22 says, "But now being made free from sin and become servants of God, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life." King James Version. The agreement ratified for this group of planets was to free them from war and allow them to pursue more profitable enterprise. Jesus gives us such a strong offer as well. We are free in him to be rid of sin, to learn self-control, love, peace, goodness, and so much more. So that was the devotion that Eric wrote. Now, at the end of each chapter, we have a quest of the day that has a few items for you to do, to think about, to write down. So what is the quest of the day for you? Or, if you will, the quest of the week for you guys. Number 1, I want you guys to read Galatians chapter 5. Number 2, what sins are you still not free from? I want you guys to think about that. Really ponder that. Number 3, what are you pursuing that is profitable? Like, really dig in. Like what are you guys pursuing? What are you active in? Verse 4, how can you move from a particular sin to something profitable? Take some time, guys, and meditate on this. Listen to it a couple times and walk through this. Journal it out. Ask yourself, how can you make a move in your life? What's your next step? If I can pray with you guys, reach out to us. You can find us on any of our social media platforms. Geekdevotions.com is the source for all that. Just look for Geek Devotions. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those things. But let me know how I can encourage you. Let us know how we can pray with you. I also want to invite you again, check out The Fantastic 42, a fellowship facing doom with hope, by going to the website nerdchapel.com. I want to thank my friends for doing this, for writing this book, because it's a great devotional. I've read through it. There's tons of fantastic conversations based on all kinds of stuff. There's devotions based off Sailor Moon, Bruce Lee, and so much more in this book. Also, fun story. I didn't say this earlier. I actually wrote the foreword for this book, so that's something. But that is your episode for today. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Do me a favor, if you like this, share it out with somebody. Maybe it'll encourage them. Also, don't forget that if this is new, like you just happen to check this out, consider subscribing to this podcast and leave a review for us. Go to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, leave a review. It helps people to figure out what this podcast is about and maybe subscribe themselves. One last thing. This is partially inspired because of our patron pick this month, which was The Day the Earth Stood Still. A lot of what happens here at Geek Devotions it is done because our patrons support us. They believe in us. They help us out, not just financially, but they pray for us. They encourage us. They send us encouraging messages, and we really, really appreciate them. So if you're one of our patrons, thank you. Thank you so much for being awesome and for being an encouragement to Celeste and I. Thank you for being an encouragement to our team. I want to invite you guys listening, if you want to become a devoted Patreon geek, again, visit our website, geekdevotions.com. Again, this is one of the tier levels where you get to pick what we're going to do. But I just thought it was so cool that this came out this week. And then this is actually in the book. And it's not too late. Guys, you pick up The Fantastic 42, a fellowship facing doom without hope, and give it to a loved one for Christmas. It's pretty cool. I love it. I forget how hard it is to close this out by myself. So until next time, stay devoted. Peace and love.